Greetings. We're going to go with the third short video on the Aireon refurbishing, and I will start again with the mechanism as there's still some issues I wanted to cover. I wanted to make clear that S402 switch, that's the continuation switch, that has to maintain its own integrity through the original wiring of the mechanism, and it actually will go back through and come through the Jones plug, and it actually is pin 25 and 26 and 25 when it gets back to the mech. Be sure that remains intact or you will not have a properly functioning mechanism. Everything else that I rewired will go into that 270 plug and do fine. I did have to mount the two turntable and mechanism plugs on the inside. That's where they plug into, and then there's some disconnect wires there, but that's how this all works. And I just wanted to make that clear. S402 needs to maintain its own integrity. Now, I forgot about the greasing of the lower cam. There is a cam on the bottom, and I didn't know this in the first two boxes. This cam operates the record turntable torquing or turning when the platter comes up. And in order to lubricate that, you have to put some grease on your finger and get underneath the cam here because it operates off the bottom. Again, I figured that out because when my record platter was coming up, it was chattering like it, and indeed there was no grease at all on the bottom. So don't forget that. That's something I should have mentioned and did not. Next would be the mechanism itself comes with rather flimsy springs for the size and weight of what they're supporting. And when the mechanism is searching for a record, there's an awful lot of free play and rattling. And so what I did, and it seems to help, I put a block under the back right corner, which is the heaviest part of the mech where the motor is. And the spring is still there, but it partially stabilizes this machine because there was just too much motion here compared to an AMI or other box that searches for records. And I think that has helped somewhat. Now the tone arms, this is the more desirable Johnny One Note tone arm, and it does lend itself a little more easily to adapting cartridges inside. It's counterweighted with lead in the back, so it's not really too heavy. I like it, but there's really nothing wrong with the other tone arm that came with this model. This is the less elaborate tone arm that has a spring to counterweight it, and you know what, it works fine. That's not really our issue. I want to say something about the record breakage. When Aireon first came out after the war, they were not really prepared for let's just say quality control, and I think this arm in the back did break records. It wasn't adequately the spring wasn't strong enough, so it cracked records in the back. That was probably corrected rather quickly, or Aireon would have been out of business in 3 months instead of 3 years. But now the problem, after 74 years, is this baby here. This casting, this ring casting, does tend to get a little bit warped. And to show you the extreme example, the machine I just purchased, it actually was broken. It had torqued, and you can see that it's broken. That's unfortunate, but fortunately I was able to get this piece from Bill Butterfield, and that actually saved my my project here. You must have proper alignment of the record rack, the aperture, which is 1/4 inch. So these guides here, there's two of them, one's behind the record. This needs to be about 3/16 inch wide here because you want the record to be pushed back in exactly in the middle of the record rack aperture. And then again, you have to line it up here. This has to be perfectly perpendicular. I did put a little bit of extra plastic in the bottom here to raise the record just like 1/16 of an inch so that it actually will meet the turntable spindle a little more properly. There's just been a little bit of settling over the years. That's just an adjustment you have to make. And then if you do get it lined up on this side for the record, be sure it's lined up over here, because I also lost this baby here because there isn't much clearance for it to come across and push the record back, and it'll jam, and this is rather fragile. This is pot metal. It broke off. I was lucky to find a replacement. So that's really about all I wanted to comment on the mechanism at this point, the common problems. Now the motor, this motor, as I mentioned, was not an original. Original is actually an Oster motor. Oster made the blenders, obviously, but do not go out and buy a blender and hope that the motor will work. This was a contract between Aireon and Oster. They have specific parameters that had to be met, and they generally functioned well. I want to talk about the credit unit. The credit unit that's in the manual is not very valuable. I've never seen it in any of the boxes. This is the one that has been in all the 4 boxes that I've had, and it actually has a rectifier in it and some other equipment. If you're going to use it, you're going to have to put a new power supply in and connect all the dots. But for now, I just leave it in the box as decoration, and I jumpered pin 5 and 6 in the plug, and that actually does everything you need it to do. I'm going to cut it off at this point. The next video will go over the cabinet and a little more on the amplifier. Thank you.